Hi, I'm going to change my linear search so that now I just find the first occurrence of the value of 18 if it exists. So I'm going to keep looking at the values in the data list until one of two things happen. Either I reach the end of the list, so my index value gets to n, or my element in the array or data list equals 18. So this means that if I had, say, 100 elements and the second one was 18, then I would stop looking. If the 99th element was 18, I would stop looking. And if there were no elements that were 18, I would stop because my index was up at 100 or at the end of the data list. So all I need to do inside the loop is to keep adding 1 to index. Oops. So this is saying keep going around this conditional loop, adding 1 to index until index equals n, i.e. I've got to the end of the list, or I've arrived at an element that actually equals 18. So I need to start index off at a value, and it seems sensible to put 1 into index so it starts looking from the first value. But it bothers me slightly because if n was say 0 by some accident, then I would never reach 0 and I would get into an infinite loop here. So I want to make sure that I do have a reason for stopping the loop, that it reaches n. So I'm going to only do this if n is greater than 0. Now you could do the check on n back up in get data, but let's put it here just to show you that working. So I'm saying that if n, I don't think I'm going to need found, so let's just leave that out. If n is more than 0, so I have some elements to look at, I'm going to put 1 into index, and I'm going to keep adding 1 onto index, looking down the list, until either I reach the end of the list or I've found one that equals 18. So when I've finished this loop, I've finished for one of two reasons. Either I've reached the end of the list or I've found an 18. So the thing you have to bear in mind is that it could be the very last one in the list that is the 18. So both these things could be true. So I'll need to ask if the reason I've stopped the loop is because I've found the 18 that I'm looking for. So if it does equal 18, then I want to put first occurrence of age 18, let's put at element number, and then I'm going to put in my index value to tell them which one. Else I must have stopped because of the other reason, so I'm just going to take that out and say there's no such event of the first occurrence of age 18. So the only other thing I probably need to do is to put in an end if for this if statement up here, and now I've got a piece of code that will go around looking at all the elements in turn, and it will stop when it finds an 18 or it gets to the end of the list. And if it was the end of the list where it found the 18, or indeed any element that found 18, I'm going to put that into this field. Okay, so let's just check no errors down here. And just before we go and run the code, I'd like to point out that we have obviously our variables. Let's just check that those are local. Well, we've got that coming in as a local parameter. Data list, index there, and that's it for variables. And the constructs that I'm using are, well, I have a conditional loop, and I have an if then else statement, a selection statement, sometimes called a conditional statement, and I also have another selection statement. So I have got this one nested inside this if statement. So let's go and see if it works. I'm going to get the data. Let's just do 3 elements, and let's make sure it works for no elements being 18. No such event. So in a way you could say that was exceptional circumstances. So now let's look at extreme. So I'm going to put 18 as the first position, and it should say at the element number 1. Let's just check some normal data where it's in the middle, and I'll just show you can see them. First occurrence should be element number 2. Let's just check the other extreme situation, which is where it's in third position. So we'll display the data, and it should say element number 3. And let's say this is exceptional, where they're all 18, which is faintly unusual, and it should say that it's the first occurrence is at element number 1, which it does.